experience. American Freedom Radio.
Yo, what's up? Check this out.
The voice of the revolution. American Freedom Radio. American Freedom Radio.
I'm here.
You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
We know the air is unfit to breathe and our food is unfit to eat. We sit in the house.
Intro was playing, and all of a sudden, poof, cut off, dead air. Well, I don't hear the intro anymore.
Prepare your mind to experience American Freedom Radio.
Yo, what's up? Check this out.
The voice of the revolution. American Freedom Radio. American Freedom Radio.
You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
We know the air is unfit to breathe and our food is unfit to eat. We sit in the house and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone.
In order to force the president's hand and compel him to do what we hired him to do, which is run the government within the confines of the Constitution and only with the money he collects from taxes and other fees.
Well, you're absolutely right. You know, what we have to look at is the president is the chief executive officer of this corporation called the United States of America. The president is the chief executive officer of this corporation called the United States of America. The president is the chief executive officer of this corporation called the United States of America.
Can you handle the truth? Welcome to the Jordan Maxwell Show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jordan Maxwell Show. I'm your guest host, Jeffrey Matt. I'm privileged once again to fill in for Jordan. Unfortunately, he's not available today, but I will be doing a short presentation to basically describe a few topics today. I want to discuss the United Nations. I want to try to make that connection with world communism. And I also want to try to connect it to the internet that has been given away from the United States government to a private nonprofit organization in California, in Southern California, and how it could be the keystone to creating a global social credit system for everybody under the care and of the United Nations, using world communism as its template. And China is just a simple model. But before I begin, I want to show gratitude and thanks to Jordan Maxwell himself, a man who has gone above and beyond for basically 6 decades, not only doing research himself, but deciding to dedicate his life to educating the people and being a lecturer, a speaker, a teacher, doing videos, doing conferences, traveling around the world, participating in major projects with Zachariah Sitchin and other people over the years, TV specials, magazine articles, books. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And so to be in the company of this caliber of mind, this capable man, I feel very inadequate, regarding his caliber of person and the information he's presented for over 6 decades, and how it must have taken him so long to get the world to wake up. But he has provided a platform that changed the entire face of the earth. And so Hollywood is making mega billions off of the core research that this man put out with all these TV shows and all these specials and all this, it just goes on, and God knows how many careers he's spawned. I used to do research on the internet, and I would find YouTube videos and movies and stuff like that were documentaries, and I could tell some of the material would come from him. And so what I found interesting, though, is that the overwhelming majority of the people who had their own channels or starting out to be a lecturer or a speaker or a presenter of some kind, I could tell a large segment of them, they were getting information that was coming back to him, but they weren't showing the acknowledgments that I think should have been made at some point. But with me, I choose to acknowledge him immediately and for the rest of my natural life as one of the main sources of the reason why I'm even able to do any presentations at all. Now, I am my own man. I learn on my own, but it could never have made it to this stage without his influence and his time and his attention. So if you want to encourage Jordan Maxwell, please consider doing so, either by purchasing or streaming his videos at jordanmaxwellshow.com, or you can join his research society for a one-time lifetime subscription, just a sort of a small fee, and you can access all his information. Or even better, if you're in a position you already are part of the research society, you can make a donation to Jordan Maxwell. He's still going, he's still teaching, and he needs your help. There is no 9-to-5 job anywhere that you are a teacher exposing the truth on all the dark areas of government and religion and secret societies and how things actually operate, and to give you this caliber of education. There is no job on Monster or any kind of work, a bulletin board of any kind where there's this kind of 9-to-5 you apply for. It doesn't exist, and there's a reason why it doesn't exist. So please keep in mind that the only way you can keep this going is by supporting him. Now, again, Jordan Maxwell Show. Now, for today, I'm going to be using some materials from my website, jeffreymatt.com, JEFFREYMATTE.com. Whatever I discuss today, the overwhelming majority of it will be available on my website on all these different topics. Now, this is something I'm just putting together quickly for everybody. It's not something I've been working on for 9 months. It's just a presentation to sort of help explain some of the stuff that's happening in today's world right now, and try to link it to some of these topics I have tried to really expound upon on my website in different topics. But today in particular, I want to talk about the internet as a technology, not just for the United States, not just for Canada or just for one other country. I'm talking about for the whole world. And I want to try to connect the dots between the internet being given away by during the Obama administration to a private, nonprofit, corporate entity in Southern California, and it being removed from the contractual obligation from the Department of Commerce and the U.S. government and military. So to me, I find that very, very unusual that a government of any size would give something away like this. So just give it away, and there's not really much explanation to it. And so this is very important, because the reason why I'm bringing this topic up is because this, to me, and I have done presentations in the past where I try to explain that the social credit system, where most people are familiar with it now, they're saying it's coming from China, and it's President Xi, and he is the mastermind. He has all the knowledge and all the insight, and he has the keys of the entire cosmos in his hands, and the Chinese Communist government has everything in the palm of their hand. No, it came from the United States. It was blessed by the Vatican, and the United Nations is the ultimate recipient of the internet, of the social, basically the social credit system that has been beta tested in China, and is going to be going live for all 1.4 billion people in China, whether they like it or not, whether they understand it or not, whether they appreciate it or not. This is where it's going to be going, so they have to start somewhere. And but the thing is that what I'm trying to do is to connect the dots a little bit more. And nothing I'm going to be saying is 100% in cement and dried and pure. It's a directional, loose picture that I'm painting for those of you who want to know. So when the United States government during the Obama administration decided to give away the internet, here's an article here that I like to point out. It's from the BBC, just in case people say, oh, you only go to alternative news. You're not using the mainstream, which supposedly is very rarely accurate or honest. Even here, they have no choice. They have no choice. The BBC has no choice but to actually report something that is factually accurate. And so this is October 1st, 2016, and it says, has the U.S. just given away the internet? Now, there's a lot of information about this. You can go look it up. It's basically ICANN. I think it's the Internet Corporations of Assigned Numbers and Names. I don't really want to go into the description of what is ICANN and you know, how did the history of the internet. No, I'm not interested in that part. What I want to share with you today is why would the U.S. government, basically the superpower of the world, abandon the internet to a private corporation in Southern California? Why in the world would they do that? Does that make sense? Is it strategically sound? Do all the generals in the Pentagon and all the lieutenants and the captains and all the people there say, this is a fantastic idea. Let's give away the internet, all the domains of .gov, all the .mil, all the domains of that. It's now up in the air with a few civilians. And I even got in touch with the customer service. They could not answer me. Who owns the internet? Well, it's just people who own it, and it's just a community, and we're all together in it, and that's just how you can participate. And so the answer was extremely vague, extremely unclear. It's what I would call a canned answer. I used to work in the largest call center in Canada back in the day, and probably has changed now. And so what I learned over the years, working in telecommunications and customer service and as a manager and HR and so on and so forth, and some very small limited technical understanding about cell phone networks, is that when you speak with people, you give them canned answers. Well, sir, this is what it is, or ma'am, this is what it is. It's not necessarily the whole answer. There's a lot of information that's left out. It's just good enough that people will say, oh, okay, and they walk away. They don't ask any more questions. Well, that's what I'm trying to find out, is why would the U.S. government, as a corporation, a federal corporation, abandon the internet to a handful of people in Southern California and a private corporation? That doesn't make a nonprofit. Doesn't make any sense to me. So I want to explore that. I want to explore some of the reasons why this could occur, and why all three agencies, the FBI, the NSA, and the CIA, and the Pentagon, all think this is a fantastic idea. Now, if there are people who are working in all these agencies who 100% disagree with this, and they're saying this is actually a very dangerous situation, not only for America, but for the internet itself and for the world, then I must acknowledge and recognize those individuals. I must also thank those who have joined the military and the police and the intelligence community who signed up for the right reasons and who do care about the well-being of not only their fellow individuals, men, women, and children and families in the United States, but also around the world, so that this world doesn't get any worse, because it's in a very bad state right now. And it's been structured that way to be in a very chaotic state, so that everybody's trying to figure out what's going on so they can roll out each little step. And it's very difficult for an individual who works 9 to 5, has to pay taxes, has to take care of their children, has to manage their all their personal stuff in their personal life, and then somehow figure out what's happening at the top. Very, very difficult. So I do want to acknowledge that I do understand that there are people who are being silenced in the intelligence and police and military environment community, who they can't say a word. Why? Because it's their oath. They have clearance to not speak, and they have they have to follow a code of conduct. Again, they have to stay inside the code. So I don't have that oath of office, and I do. All I really am doing here is I'm just putting together an analysis, basically a breakdown of what I see in the mainstream. There's nothing magical about what I found. This is something everybody can find on the internet. It's just I'm trying to piece it together. So now that I've gotten that out of the way, and I do not speak on behalf of any organization whatsoever. It's just I'm an individual, and that's very important, because in the world world communism and with the United Nations and with the global social credit system that's going to be modeled off the Chinese one, it's the individual will no longer exist very soon. It's going to be very, very soon. The individual will have to comply on every level. You will not be able to speak to your wife or husband about anything that the government may disagree with, or if the United Nations isn't happy about it. It's already happening in China that if you say anything, a family member speaks to another family member, and a recording device in your home, like your smartphone, your smart TV, your smart appliances, hears you, you will have problems getting a job. You will have problems renting an apartment or a home or buying land or sending your children to school. And you will no longer be able to take buses, trains, or planes. Eventually, you won't be able to do anything. You'll end up on a blacklist. There's already over 10 million people who cannot take high-speed trains and airplanes at this current state, and it has not even rolled out live for all 1.4 billion. When it goes online for 1.4 billion, that I think it was 13 million people who had problems no longer able to use long-distance transportation. That might balloon up to 100 or 2 or 300 million. It might even balloon up to 4 or 500 million. Who knows? Because if you don't comply, you die digitally. Now, I don't see a problem with the Chinese people per se. I don't see them being part of the problem. I think that the Chinese infrastructure was set up by the globalists, and they just simply execute the will of their masters. That's all it is. It's world communism is a business model that is going to be in lockstep with the world global model with the United Nations. And so that's where the Chinese people come in, and unfortunately they're in a very difficult scenario. And so my heart goes out to them. So I don't want to come across as if I'm passing blame on the Chinese people when it's not the case. The business model is what is really my interest. Okay, so now that I've laid that sort of foundation, I want to say one of the things that's very important to help establish this global UN social credit system under the model of communism, of world communism, is there's a few elements I want to talk about. First of all, this is like a strange topic to add in here, but stupidity is very, very important to put into play here. But what do I mean by stupidity? Stupidity is basically someone, this is my interpretation, someone who doesn't know what's happening, someone who is in the category of ignorance or is ignorant of a situation, can make careless decisions or uneducated choices, and it appears as if they're fouling themselves up. They're making mistakes. And so this is one of the most important features of the global business model to basically ensnare the entire world into world communism, is to keep the ignorance level as high as possible. Example, the Vatican has a library that has over 50 miles of documentation. I want you to imagine taking a walk with me. Let's say we met somewhere and we said, hey, let's hang out. And we take a walk that is 50 miles long. Well, it would probably take, a few days. And that's if we're lucky and we have food waiting for us. That's the amount of information and data that is in the Vatican archive that has been publicly, described to the average individual like yourself and me. And so that information is never been available and most likely will never be available to the human family. And so we will just continue to breathe in poisoned air, genetically modified food, and we'll have wars and we'll have economic crises one after the other. Why? Because it's the only way to manage 8 billion people. Because if people were healthy, educated, thinking clearly, and standing on their own 2 feet and educated, and the ignorance level was way, way less, the amount of stupidity that would spawn from that ignorance would go down significantly. And so it's extremely important to the people at the top that stupidity is almost like the foundation of making this all work. If we do stupid things, we act stupidly, we think on a stupid level, then they can proceed without any interference. They can have champagne bottles delivered to them. And by the way, the people at the top, they don't have a 9 to 5 job. They don't have to worry and have about getting to work on time, and they don't have to worry about stress for any of the reasons that you and I have to worry about it. And so it frees up the psyche that they say, oh, I have to prove to my colleagues I'm really good. I have to get the statistics at my job. All that's been removed. Now that you have that pressure removed, then you don't have to worry about money, right? Because most of the elites and the rich people, the billionaires, they don't pay taxes. Tim Cook doesn't want to pay taxes. He's not interested in paying taxes, so he moved everything to China. He's not interested. He'd much rather have suicide nets around buildings and have slave labor. He's very business-wise. It's a very savvy decision for himself. It may not be for everybody else on earth, but he's very, very interested in paying no taxes and having slave labor or very close to slave labor, and also maybe tap into the prison industrial complex there as well, because they do have slave laborers there as well. And I think in the Chinese government, they call it work through rehabilitation through work. Now, that may sound appropriate to help rehabilitate someone, but it may not be the case in actuality. So Apple is there to avoid, if you have $1 trillion company and you have $100 million or even $100 billion in taxes you could have saved, well, that's a lot of money. You could do a lot with that. So this is, if you want to finance global world communism and the global social credit system, you simply have to sign up for Apple products, for subscriptions and such. So I'm not saying all the employees at Apple are thinking this, they understand this. I was even trained by Apple to help launch the first iPhone in Canada. I think it was 2008. I don't remember anymore the exact year. It doesn't matter. But I was trained to be to train the trainers to launch the first Apple phone. And all the Apple employees were exceptional. They're all hardworking and they're dynamic, and it was fun. But ultimately, the high-end business model is totally different, and they didn't know anything about it, and neither did I. And so this is why I want to discuss it today. And if you want to know more about how you're going to finance world communism and help launch the global social credit system in North America, in the United States, as a corporation, in Canada, and all the other places, you simply have to finance corporations like Apple subscription. Now, I'm not saying that it's only Apple and they're the source of it. There are many other corporations interlinked with it. It's just the one that the average person is going to be able to say, oh, okay, they're in China, they don't pay taxes. My money that I pay for these subscriptions is going to feed into a tax-free system that is communist, and it's going to censor my searches on the internet. It's going to block me if I want to start my own YouTube channel, because it's all connected to Google, of course. And they're all interlinked, and Apple uses the iCloud off of Google. So they're all connected together. It's not just Apple, it's Google as well. I'm not saying that Google employees are happy with this either, but ultimately they're not going to say a word. Okay, even if you see an article or two on the internet saying, oh, they're unhappy about that, doesn't change a thing. Business as usual. That's just basically what it is. I've had the experience, and most likely you have. You go to work, something happens that you think doesn't make any sense, and it just continues to happen anyway, no matter how much you complain or how many things you point out that would make it show the logic and the common sense and the reasoning. The reason why that crazy decisions are made in large corporations is to break up the capability of autonomy. That's why they internationalize everything. That's why Bill Clinton and the George Bushes are saying interdependence. So you take away autonomy in one area of your corporation and you outsource it to another country and another corporation with another legal framework. So nothing can really work, and everybody's dependent on each other, and nobody can be autonomous and self-sufficient. That's how you build up world communism. And so when you give the internet away, the U.S. gives it away, what it does is it opens the door to the end of freedom of speech, and it opens the door to unlimited censorship, and it finally opens the door to an internet court. What is an internet court? It's a place that anything you say, do, your facial expressions is now going to be available to be judged and executed with an internet court. And this internet court is going to replace what you and I would consider the regular court. But to promote this information out there, you need a system to propagate misdirection and half-correct stories, omissions. You have to give a really muddy picture to the average individual. And so the United Nations has a special headquarters. This is just my interpretation. It has a headquarters in North America. It's called CNN. And so CNN is a place where if you have a globalist situation, business model rolling out, and there's a little bit of a hiccup for PR, something's not looking good, some sort of scandal of some kind, you just simply go to CNN only, no other network. You do an interview, and they'll softball you. Softball meaning they'll just give you light questions. Oh, you didn't mean to do that, right? And you do care about the customer experience. Yeah, we do care. That's what Mark Zuckerberg does. Okay, his job is to just simply apologize every few months, and he will be basically maybe he was told he's going to be the master of the cosmos, or the social credit system. Who knows what he was offered or told? Who knows what he understands? But here's an example of him going to CNN when there was a scandal. And this again, I'm not making this up. This is all information that you can find on your own. And this is just for educational and commentary purposes. But here is an article saying Zuckerberg, in a very emotional moment, he goes to CNN to talk about the scandal. And here's a quote from him. And now, I really just care about building something that my girls are going to grow up and be proud of me for. So here's a few examples. Facebook knowingly duped game-playing kids and their parents out of money. Facebook CEO admits to calling users dumb effers. I'm not going to say the word here because it's in case there's a young person. And Facebook founder called trusting users dumb Fs. So it just keeps going. And then here's a statement. Your user agreement sucks. Senator threatens Mark Zuckerberg with regulation over data leak. Facebook under fire over storing facial recognition data without consent. So here's the thing. He has been convinced, and this is the reason why it doesn't matter if the guy is good or not. He's convinced that it's okay. It's okay to do this because all he has to do is show up on the internet or on a newscast every few months and say, I'm sorry. We're working hard to make things right, and everything will be just A-okay, and we care about you. Thank you so much. So there are endless, even there's a Facebook CIA connection. Facebook accused of conducting mass surveillance through its apps. Mark Zuckerberg finally says sorry for Facebook privacy scandal. So what happens is that this is all, I'm sure he probably most likely still perceives that the average person has no clue what's going on. And so when you show up to do your apology every 2 or 3 months, everything seems to be okay in the end. He's still a billionaire. He still owns Facebook, and he's helping build a world communistic social credit system. And he gets to be the man at the top. So not with other people in Google and Apple and other corporations that I've left out. So there's all kinds of examples here that I wanted to point out here. And you can just see them yourself through my website. So they're going to censor news here. And Facebook faces class action lawsuits over a massive new hack. And so this is the kind of stuff that most people, they're so busy looking at all the news. This is why I aggregated it for you, so you can look at it at this yourself. The other thing, too, that I find interesting is that when you go out and you present this information, people are going to say, well, I don't know where you're getting it from. That's why I have these screen captures to help you break it down. Another thing that helps people keep their mind is at the highest level of ignorance possible. I do not think the average person is stupid. I'm counting on the intellectual capability of everyone who's listening to this, who most likely knows what I'm talking about or more than me. And if you know you're in the learning curve with me, then I'm grateful to have your time and attention. So I do have a genuine respect. That's why I'm doing these presentations. But here's another aspect of how they keep people down in the dumps and keep people unaware of what to do and how to act. You have to go visual. If you see a really attractive woman, you go visually. You say, maybe I'll go talk to her. Or if you see if you're a woman, you see a very handsome young man, and you got to talk to him. Well, it's all visual cues, right? Well, one of the people who are at the top, they figured out, why don't we make clothes that makes people look like bums or people under the bridge? And by doing so, it's going to condition the subconscious mind of the average individual to lower their standards, to lower their thinking. If you're not wearing a three-piece suit all the time, you're wearing jeans that are filled with holes, and all your favorite rappers like Kanye here, who was mimicking. Here's an example where it's mimicking looking like a street person, or is wearing sweaters that are probably $700 or $800 a sweater. I don't know the exact price, but filled with holes. But it's to replicate, but be a famous person to replicate the concept that I'll be cool if I look like a destitute individual. Now, Kanye has been a gentleman who has been, I never met him, who has been talking about getting off the plantation, make America great. And I do agree with that. I think that if this gentleman is an educated man, he's interested in Candace Owens, then I applaud him for being a thinking man and to be a good businessman. At the same time, there seems to be a period of his life, and again, I don't want to judge the entire life of this man based on wearing bum clothes, but at the same time, either he was tricked into this or is extremely lucrative, and he felt this is a good idea. I think what I'll do is I will help young teenagers or young people to look like you've been living under a bridge most of your life for the last 7 years with your shopping cart. And Kim Kardashian as well. She made a concerted business decision as well, even though she's working with the White House to help reform criminal justice, and she is helping individuals come out of this very difficult prison industrial complex. She's involved with this as well. So it seems to be a little bit of a contradiction, but here there are examples. It's not me making it up. It's not me trying to put down Kim Kardashian and Kanye West, but there's just example after example after example of getting the rich and the famous to push and peddle destitution, low-class living, basically psychological and emotional agony. If you're broke on the street, you're not happy, or you're in agony, you're suffering, and promote it so that you can look like a bum and think like one. So you can't spend your time thinking about what's happening above this level. So this is what the fashion industry has done. They co-opted some of the famous people. It's not just Kim Kardashian. It's a bunch of other people here that here's Puff Daddy, and here's Orlando Bloom. Again, these people may be on a personal, individual level, interesting, thought-provoking people, but they also signed off on a business contract somewhere. I'm okay with this. I'm okay with putting on jeans or promoting jeans that look like they've been soiled and then sell them for $200 or $300 a pair. And so this is how you lower the common denominator. This is how you introduce communism. You got to get the psychology to go down as much as possible, to think as low as possible, to be as unclassy as possible. And there's all kinds of stuff here. This is ridiculous. And here's a pair of jeans for those of you who think this is some sort of fashion or some sort of claim to fame that you're going to make it in life with a pair of jeans that's missing 90% of the actual frame of the jean. This is what's happening. It's on the news. It's in the newspaper. It's available. It's only $168 for the extreme cut. And so this is something that people are being pumped. All the young people are being pumped. And so when you have Common Core education, which is basically promoting communism, and you combine it with this kind of stuff, meanwhile, at the higher echelons, all you have to do is apologize like Mark Zuckerberg does, or Tim Cook, export everything to a tax-free haven, and then take all the money of America and Canada and the Western world and bring it all into China tax-free, and now you have no idea what your money is going, and it's basically building up the United Nations so that you can start to connect it to why would the Obama administration give up the internet, and then it's all gone, and he transfers over to President Trump, which I believe is currently I see a pattern where he seems to be pro America. And so because he's pro America and he's making decisions that are being very well hidden in the mainstream media, that he's making moves, he's doing certain moves that most people are not seeing collectively. I'm going to do a presentation on that in the future. If you disapprove of President Trump, I would recommend that you do your homework of what his business decisions are, not what the person is. I've never met him, but I am under the impression that he's a highly, highly informed man, and he's able to overcome a lot of the craziness because he's informed himself since for many decades. And so that's how he's able to deal with all the pressure, and he's still able to make different kinds of moves. Meanwhile, the American people and the Canadian people and other people in the Western world are being pumped garbage clothes that borderline and prostitution and all this other stuff. So stupidity is very important. It's part of the business model. Again, people are not stupid. People who don't understand what's going on, eventually an accumulation of ignorance and consistency of ignorance leads to careless decisions and not thought-provoking choices. So, and when you combine it with the clothes and the music, again, one of the things is the most important is that in communism, everybody has to be the same. Well, if everybody has to be the same, then the individual's gone. This is how they do it. They do it through the clothes. They do it through the music. They do it through the arts and culture. And this just keeps going on and on. But when you launch the social credit system around the world, meanwhile, while you're putting on your torn jeans and the zipper be in the back of a woman's jeans, what happens is that meanwhile they're rolling out the technology for the social credit system, not just for China, but for the entire world. Here are some very simple examples that I want to present to you so that you can understand where I'm coming from. Never Offline for the Time magazine is actually very, very strong statement, very what I would consider very accurate. You will never be able to recover from this. You will never be able to hide anywhere or find a safe place. The only two places you can possibly go once it's completely rolled out is to apply to the CIA or the NSA and maybe the FBI. That's a possibility. It's maybe the FBI, or maybe if you work at the Pentagon. If you want to just simply apply to be a 5-star general, you'll be able to basically, when you go into this echelon of society and the corporation of the United States, you immediately become above the law. What do I mean by above the law? The law no longer applies to you, period. Speeding, misdemeanors, felonies, nothing applies. Why? And again, this is my opinion. I do not practice law. I do not interpret law. This is just an opinion. The reason why I'm under the impression that it appears that you simply are above the law by joining these institutions is because nobody knows your name if you're an agent. Nobody knows what you do, and nobody knows anything about you. So basically, it's almost impossible to track anything you do. So that gives you a huge cushion of comfort. If you want to do something illegal, who out of the 300 million, 30 million people in America, who's going to be able to interpret, understand, and discern what's happening? Nobody. So you instantly get a step up in life, and you get to escape all laws, period, all policy, all statutes. None of this applies to you anymore. So when the social credit system comes on, there's going to be a huge pressure. People are going to say, where can I go to get relief? Well, intelligence might be a place you could go. The Pentagon, you could apply there if you want. You could you could become a general or a Joint Chiefs of Staff. You could become a UN employee. That's another way. Or you could join secret societies. That's the other. If you can't get in as a 5-star general or a 3-star general, or the head of the military police of some kind, you could they don't accept your application, you could join a secret society. Now, secret societies are going to face a major success and a major challenge, because secret societies is a perfect place where you can talk without any cameras or any recording devices, and you can sit there in peace and comfort and relaxation, maybe have a chicken dinner or something like that. And again, I'm not saying all Masons are like this, or all the secret societies that are all these different names. There's hundreds of them. I'm not saying one in particular. They're all a place that people are going to apply to go to escape the world social credit system, where everything you say, everything you do, everywhere you go, you'll have a slight relief if you join secret societies. And I'm not promoting them, by the way. I'm just saying the average person will not know about what I'm talking about, and they'll just say, where can I go? And they'll say, I don't care what it's called. It could be called Wendy's. It could be called free. It could be anything. I just want to have a little bit of privacy, and it's the only place I know of that I can do it. I'll just go and apply and join the group. And so they're going to be facing a huge uptick of people joining these societies. So I don't know what their business plan is. I don't know how they're going to manage this transition. And it's not just going to be in your local town. It's going to be all over the world. Secret societies are going to explode with interested people, people who swear that they're demonic and satanic, and then they're going to apply anyway because they know they won't be found out, because they want to escape the social credit system. They want to have a place at least once a week they can talk with other men or maybe women, and they don't have to worry about being recorded. They can leave their phones at the door or something like that, and then sort of chew the fat or do whatever they do. And so this is going to cause a major pressure on them. So they're going to have to prepare themselves for this. I don't know what they're going to do. I'm not part of it, so I have no way of knowing. I'm not a Freemason, so I have no way of knowing how they're going to handle this, but it's the only logical outlet that I can see. Other technologies that are going to confirm or to push in the direction of what I'm talking about is that even the United Kingdom employees are getting microchips. I know there's a company in the United States that they're chipping their employees so they can get something out of they can open their doors, unlock their keyboards at work, and get a concession snack foods by having a little microchip in their hand. And so this is all going to come together and create the social credit. If you have Spotify, if you have Netflix, if you have a Ralph's grocery store card or any kind of pharmacy points membership card of any kind, what's going to happen over the next few years is that if you like to get the discounts and the coupons from your grocery store or your pharmacy, if you use Lyft or Uber, which is now connected to Medicare and Medicaid in the United States, okay, when you connect them all together, what's going to happen is going to be more financial instability, and some of these companies are going to merge with the others. I'll give an example in Canada. A grocery store chain with a pharmacy chain merged their rewards program benefit cards. And so what happens is now one corporation knows everything you buy at the pharmacy and knows everything you buy at the grocery store. It knows how often you buy bags of chips. It knows how often you buy cookies. And it knows how many cookies you actually purchase, literally. And if you look on the Oreo cookie, I think there's a Maltese cross on the actual cover of the cookie itself, the chocolate cookie. There's a little Maltese cross. And so I think this is from Jordan Maxwell. This is not from me, Jeffrey Matt. This is from Jordan. He mentioned to me that this actually may be a way to finance the CIA, and the Knights of Malta is through Oreo cookies. So if you're interested in that, thank you, Jordan Maxwell, for opening my mind up to that possibility that when you buy cookies, you might be indirectly financing the CIA and the Knights of Malta and the Vatican. And so they need your money to finance this new world order. And so these technologies, in conjunction with chips in your hand and mind reading technologies to read the emotions of where you are in the street, if you're just left a bar and you met the girl, or you're with this guy you just met, and they read your face and it remembers it, and then the insurance company finds out that you had 6 drinks because you used your Apple Pay. And what happens is that you drink a little bit more than usual, your insurance, you won't be able to be insurable. And if you keep doing it, your job may actually say, we're sorry, but you have a risky lifestyle outside of work. Even though you show up on time, even though you do great work, your behavior outside of work, when it's 2 a.m., we have data that's been fed back to, because you signed off on everything, right? You're an employee of us. We have to let you go because your personal lifestyle is there. And this includes your facial expressions. This includes how you behave as an individual. So it actually may help you lose a job. They're going to come out with toilets. They already have it now that detects your heart rate, but they're going to have special smart toilets when you urinate in that toilet, it will detect everything in your urine. It will go straight to the insurance company, and it will either ban you from getting insurance, or you'll have to pay an exorbitant price and you'll be on a blacklist where you can't even get medical insurance. So let's say you're 20 and you want to have a good time and you go out and you have a drink every twice a week. And by the time you're 35 or 40, the insurance companies will not insure you because they say, we see that you bought 1,800 proper pints, and so we don't want to insure someone who ruins their liver like that, or take drugs or whatever else, prescription drugs. And even if it is prescribed to you, you will end up in a situation where even if you take prescription drugs and you can't get off it because you're addicted to opioids because you hurt your back or something like that, you may not even be eligible to apply for an apartment in a building because you have a health issue, and so they don't want to bring you in. This is all to bring the common denominator of the human family to the lowest possible rate, so that the humans can finally feed their final data to the AI, and that the internet that's been given away by the Obama administration can be redistributed to the UN. And the person who's talking about this, by the way, this is a gentleman named Morgan Wright, Morgan Wright. Look up this gentleman, Morgan Wright, okay? And this is very important because when you look at what's happening here, here is the video, what Obama's internet giveaway is really all about. So I would invite everybody to look that up to get a little bit of more of understanding. And if you, like I said, if you want to finance the growth as fast as possible in a tax-free environment in a communist country, where it's already being rolled out in the next few months for 1.4 billion, and there's already tens of millions who can't take a train or a plane. If you want to accelerate it, all you have to do is to purchase these services. And keep in mind, too, it's not just Apple. Netflix pays zero taxes in the United States, but everybody else pays taxes, but they don't. What that does is that it gives an edge to the world communist movement. It gives an edge to the United Nations. It gives an edge to move this stuff forward 10 times quicker, and nobody can keep up with it. And so when you put it all together, even Netflix, even though they're not in China, excuse me, they're not in China per se as a headquarters, but they still pay no interest. They pay, no taxes. The employees at Netflix have to rate each other. That's a cursory soft version of a social credit system. So if you're at a desk and you have a team of 6 people who are doing tickets or working in customer service or working in technical stuff, you have to rate each other, rating employees. There's going to be bad blood. There's going to be pressure, and people are going to get squeezed out. There are going to be gang ups. So when you combine this up with Uber, with Lyft, with Netflix ratings, all your groceries, this is the social credit system in America. But the linchpin is the internet. The Pentagon said, we're cool with it. The Department of Commerce says, this is a great idea. And the U.S. government under the Obama administration said, this is probably the best thing since sliced bread. Let's give it away. And so who's going to be the recipient of it? It's going to be the United Nations. This is also going to impact Canada. We're going towards that. But what you need to do is you need to have another facet of it is you need to go cashless, okay? The faster you go cashless, and Canada is a very, very strong proponent of going cashless. The faster we go cashless, the quicker this rolls out. So the only thing I could suggest is that keep in mind, I'm not saying this to sound like an old man up in a cabin somewhere who's heard of the internet and who's heard of television, and I don't know what's going on, is that use cash for now. Keep those stores using cash. Keep those cash registers using cash to temporarily delay until there's a possible change. If this continues and everything goes cashless, it's finished for everybody. I don't care if you're a 45-year veteran in the CIA, your grandchildren are not going to have a fantastic outcome. They're going to be sterile, and they're going to be in a communist environment. So even the people who want this whole situation to go down in the intelligence community, which I'm surprised there are, but it appears there are, because I've never heard once on the internet or on mainstream news anywhere where the intelligence community says we're going to defend America, we're going to take care of these strange situations and take a deeper look, and we're here for you. That's what I'm having a hard time seeing. Now, I'm not saying they're not doing that, but I'm saying the fact that I never see any articles, I never see any kind of public relations propaganda where they're saying we're going to take care of it. It's dead silent. What that tells me is that the business model at the absolute top is make sure this goes through. Don't worry about it. Nobody understands what's going on. Even if they do, we'll take care of them. We'll just eliminate them one at a time. We'll just send in. We'll overwhelm them. We'll create a scenario where they can't recover. Bankruptcy. We'll build a charge on them. You're finished. You're gone. And so once those few handful of people go out there and protest it, and they're all arrested or they're limited in some way, they can't do anything. They can't travel anymore. The rest will fall instantly. There's no problem whatsoever. And as 5G rolls out, 5G will connect to this cashless situation, and that whatever's left of this supposed eroded sovereignty of corporate nations, once 5G is rolled out, all the financial transactions will roll through your digital phone, through your smartphone, through your tablet, through your PC, through your watch. And all the transactions will go over the 5G. People are saying, oh, it's going to cause cancer. Oh, it's going to make me sterile, my children sterile. Yes, but really what's going to happen right away is that it's the platform. That's why 5G is rolling out no matter what. Nobody cares except for maybe the listenership. Everybody thinks it's a wonderful thing. There will be no injury to the biology of the human. And so there is no sterility coming. There is no cancer. But those who are looking into this, they understand it. But one of the first results will be is that once you start using these platforms financially, which you're going to have to do to take your bus, to rent a car, to pay for your tolls on the road, it's going to transfer the entire financial infrastructure away from your local bank branch. Your local credit union branch will disappear. Why? What's the point of having a branch office with 4 or 5 tellers, even with 6 ATMs, or even if it's just 2 tellers and 10 ATMs? What's the point of paying rent, electricity, insurance, employees, vacation, all this stuff when you can just do it all through 5G? It is going to be the largest financial transition of sovereignty, wealth, and your right, whatever little rights we do have. I don't think we really actually have any rights. We're really slaves in all this. It's going to transition away from the traditional banking infrastructure where you go down the street and it's church, bank, church, bank, church, bank, with a few strip malls. Those local branches are all going to disappear, and it's all going to be online. So now you won't be able to find your bank. It'll all be online. And they're going to say, well, we couldn't afford to keep these branches open. Well, 5G is 100 times faster. Everything will be centralized. And Huawei is a communist is built and designed and set up in a communist country. And so what happens is that if you own the patents to this 5G, that means all your financial transactions are piggybacking on this patented technology in a communist environment. That means your financial life will become communist, period. There's no discussion to be had. And so once that's transition, all your local banks are gone, all your credit unions are gone, everything's online now and it's cashless. Now you're starting to understand how the United Nations, which Morgan Wright was saying, that the internet was given away, and it's going to be given to the United Nations, and so they're going to manage it. And thank God they have the Charter of Human Rights. So as we eat GMO foods and as we breathe in whatever they're spraying in the air that's geoengineering the planet, and they say that climate change, which is amazing. When you say climate change, it's changing every second of the day. But if the Pope says climate change is real, now you have to pay attention. It makes no sense, but the average person cannot process this because they have Kim Kardashians, they have the Kanye Wests wearing ripped clothes, saying it's cool to have 90% no gene on, and all the other rappers and all that who are involved, and even racism and minority and all this stuff. It's just to keep everybody busy long enough to roll out this stuff. That's all it is. All these groups that are fighting each other, Black Lives Matters, Antifa, all these white supremacists. I want no part of it. I support none of it. I'm part of none of it. I'm just explaining to you that this social clash that's occurring is designed to keep everybody real busy and keep CNN alive with a bunch of tabloid stories and belittling the president while he's trying to transition things away from that. So I don't know if he's going to take back the internet, but if there was spying on the Trump campaign, if there was spying on it, if there is an investigation that is done, if the Obama administration was interconnected with it, and this administration somehow is exonerated, fine. But if it's not exonerated, and it is actually directly connected to this, and there's a problem beyond just a misdemeanor, and it ends up becoming at a treason level, if for some reason it reaches that level, what happens is that every decision that the Obama administration has made in the last could possibly and basically nullified, which means the transfer of the internet may be illegal or may not be valid. And so therefore, if the Trump administration and if the investigation leads to that conclusion, then there is a small chance that the internet could be repatriated back into the United States government corporate infrastructure and postpone world communism under the United Nations with the social credit system for the entire world all at once. Now, it will still roll out in Europe and most likely other parts of the Commonwealth, but there might be a temporary delay in the United States if that were to be the outcome, and if for some reason the Obama administration was found performing illegal acts of some kind, it would potentially open the door for the Trump administrations to reevaluate 8 years of decisions. The reason why I'm saying this is because, excuse me, as you and I both know, the average individual out there, a young man, young woman, a career person who doesn't know about any of this material will not be able to process this hardly at all. Even if they understood everything I said at face value and they say, wow, that's incredible, they wouldn't know what they'll be frozen because it's the first time that they have to manage this level of information and it's simply too much. So unfortunately, I cannot work with all 7 billion people who don't understand. I can't work with those people. I can't help them. I am in a position to try to make a contribution. I don't have the truth. I don't own it, but to make a contribution to a possible insight as to what is actually happening, how things are really operating, how things are really going, and where things are going to go. And so when you put this all together and you start looking at it, it's probably one of the only ways that there could be a delay, if not a reversal, a possible reversal of the global communistic United Nations social credit system from being put into place. There's a corporation that puts a badge on your employees' necks. It's called Humanize with the Z. And it's in Boston, and basically it records everything you do. When you sit, how long you sit, what's your posture, who you talk to, what's your tone of voice compared to the person in the other tone of voice, who has the dominant role in that conversation, who has the emotional pitch, tone, inflection. Everything is calculated into called human metrics, okay? And these human metrics determine what is the pecking order and what is the efficiency and what is the optimal human resource allocation in the corporate environment. That is going to be applied to your personal life. It's going to be applied to when you purchase your next pillow. It's going to find out how much money you earn. Why did you buy a pillow outside of your purchasing range? Did you buy the right type of pillow based on how much money you make? Everything you do. If you want to have intimate relationship with your husband or wife or your partner, then what's going to happen is that data is going to be fed into the AI in the bathroom as well. Peter Diamandis, who's part of the Singularity University, you can look that up. He has a presentation. It's called Demonetizing Everything. something to the effect of demonetizing the world. And so he was making a suggestion that we could have high definition cameras in your shower. So every day when you're naked and you're cleaning your body, they could take a picture of your body to see if you're potentially developing skin cancer. Well, why stop at that? Why don't we just put an 8K camera in there, which, by the way, the human eye cannot see in 8K. The human eye cannot technically see in 4K at all. One of the highest resolutions, to my current understanding, I'm not an audiovisual expert, is 1080p. Everything above that is going to be utilized to hypnotize the human family, to mesmerize them, and to keep them in a different altered state where you can't think clearly. Your attention span is even shorter than a goldfish. Everybody's heard that. It's all by design, because AI is not for me, and it is not for you, and it is not for your children. Where is this social credit system going? It is simply to design an infrastructure so that it can open the door to synthetic life. And when you have people like when the Putin of Russia would say, there will come a day where there are men who have no fear and feel no pain. Those are synthetic humans that will be cloned and genetically engineered. They're doing it already in China. That is who the AI is for. If you have a man who cannot feel pain and have no fear, there's only one way you can control them. You need an AI that is interconnected with them on a digital level and can control every aspect, and they have to be able to read your mind. And so these are the kinds of things that the technologies that we are building every day to help build this communist United Nations global social credit system, so they can slowly, gradually make a lot of money, harvest your life, harvest your emotions, harvest everything about you, and then put into the AI, and you're going to finance it by buying all these products. And there's all kinds of technology that's going to be able to detect how you act, how you behave, so that when they finally have these supermen and superwomen coming out, that they're going to be able to break walls and they'll feel no pain, they can't bleed, and they'll live for 400 years. You can't control that. So you need AI, and you need the social credit system to manage these new employees, not living creatures that have rights. Robots are going to have more rights than human beings. Humans meaning me and you. I understand that in the law dictionaries it can be interpreted as a monster or a slave, but I'm not talking about. I'm just doing some street talk. And so what happens is that the human being, me and you, will have the lowest legal status. The second highest will be robots, and the third will be synthetic life, and then at the top will be the elite. So this is something people need to understand. And the social credit system is not, like I said, it's not just going to be in China. It's going to be all over the place. They're going to harvest your DNA. They're going to sample everything in your life, and they're just going to build it up one thing at a time. There's even a corporation called Predpol, which is interconnected with the CIA and Palantir. They're going to predict where crimes are going to be occurring. So there's going to be a day coming very soon where you're going to realize you're going to be walking down the street, and if you walk into a neighborhood you've never been in before, and the predictive AI says it's a hot spot for crime, don't be surprised if you're pulled aside, people come out of a van or come up to you and say, we're going to search you, we're putting you under arrest for suspicion. This guy, and the thing is that the police officers, they're stuck. Police officers want to make a good living, be respected as the authority, to honor the law, but they can't do it. They cannot do it. Why? Because that's not the business model. It has nothing to do with the law. It has to do with enforcement. It has to do with policy enforcement. And so they're going to, basically, people are going to want to stay indoors at home more often to avoid these AI crime-ridden hotspots, because you don't know where they are. And so people will stay indoors more often and become more socially isolated. Now we're opening the door to what? Assisted suicide. Assisted suicide, people are going to say, I can't take this anymore. I want to go where there's no pain. I want to go where there's no hurt feelings and no rejection from women or men. And so they're going to harvest your personality, and you can join the digital dimension where there's no pain. You can just play games all day long and have fun and be intimate with people and all this. This is what they're going to be pumping out in the next 10, 20 years. But these are the kinds of technologies that are going to be doing that. And so even when you travel, they're going to make sure that you don't enjoy traveling ever again, and so you won't travel anymore. Even if you have the money, you could be a billionaire, and if you say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing or have the wrong facial expression, or somebody who speaks out against the government or the UN, you will lose your right to live in your home. Eventually, you won't be able to travel because of somebody you know. You may not even speak with them. And so this is the kind of thing that's coming for the social credit. Now, a lot of these tech junkies out there, I used to be one of them, I would think this is ridiculous. This is absolutely nonsense. That's why I have my website. That's why I have the documentation. It's simply there as commentary and for education purposes. I could be wrong about the entire process. I could be, but I doubt it. And that's why I'm out here doing this. And I was given a lot of insight and guidance from brilliant minds, not just Jordan. And so I'm giving back. I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking for anything because I understand what's coming. I understand enough of what's coming. And, it's just a very sad scenario. What I find amazing is that everybody's, except for the listenership, everybody else seems to be really, really cool with it. So I don't know why it's like that. But there's all kinds of stuff that's coming down the pipe. And so ultimately, it's going to lead towards a prison environment, an outdoor prison. But before we get to the outdoor prison, there's going to be samples and examples of how the United Nations accepting the internet that was given during the Obama administration, if it goes through unchallenged, and I don't think personally, I don't know, I've never met him, but my suspicion, my heart tells me this has nothing to do with logic and deep analysis through thousands of pages of documentation. My heart tells me that this man is going to try to not let this happen in America. And if it is a successful outcome that actually occurs, the world is going to follow this new model, and it could change the outcome of a 6 billion person harvesting over the next 30, 40 years, where infertility goes through the roof. And there is no freedom of speech, and it's all based on censorship, and it's based on fear. And so, and then assisted suicide will not scoop up. It will not turn to a strip mall and steal your image, your voice, your personhood, your personality, and then reuse it for corporate, because they're going to copyright you. That's basically what's going to happen. But before it gets to that stage, you're going to have outdoor prisons. Here's an article saying how China turned a city into a prison. Beijing to judge every resident based on their behavior. It's nothing to do if you're a good employee or not. This has to do with how you talk to your wife or your husband or your children or to your uncles at family dinners. And if you say something, I think that's really dumb. Boom. Next day, you're going to have problems. At that moment, as soon as that comment's made, that is a negative comment that doesn't fit the needs of the corporate United Nations world communistic Chinese model, your credit will go down. People who will call you and they'll hear a special tone on their phone saying you're calling someone on the blacklist, and you will never get calls from your husbands, your wives, your children, your aunts, your uncles, your nieces, because they're too afraid to call you. And then because they have AI prediction policing centers that are going to be eventually built up over the years, you won't go out as much. You'll stay indoors. You'll put on your VR headset instead, and you'll travel through VR. And so what's going to happen is unprecedented amounts of depression and suicidal tendencies will explode. But before we get to that stage, we need to make sure that we have the template set up perfectly, correctly. 4 days. For 4 days, they strung me up like this. My toes are just barely brushed the ground. Inside China's re-education centers, where Uyghur Muslims are pressured to give up Islam. If you think, oh, well, that's, let's say for some reason you don't like Islam, okay? Well, and I'm safe. I'm totally fine. I make $45,000 a year, and I eat organic. I'm safe. I have a 4-year degree. I'm on top of the world. I'm an accountant. I'm a director of purchasing. I work in marketing and advertising. I wear skinny jeans. Everything's great. I have my trophy wife. If you're a woman, I have a man who's got a lot of money. He's got a Viper, and everything's great. My mortgage is paid off. I have a platinum card. I'm safe. Wrong. You're not safe. So if you think it's just for the Muslims, it's not. It's going to be for you. Because I can assure you, at some point, you're going to say something that the world communism is not going to appreciate, and and now you can't travel, you can't take a train, you can't take a bus, you can't take a plane, you can't take a boat. Eventually it's coming, and now there's a system in China. It's called the 996. If you work 9 to 9 6 days a week, that's the 996. It's burning people out. Tim Cook is okay with it. That's why he moved $1 trillion to China, because he can get people to work 9 to 9 with or without permission, and it's all tax-free at slave labor prices. Very important for him to have this. And he said it in a CNN interview when he moved the iCloud to China. He says, I'm paraphrasing to a certain degree, go look it up yourself. He says, if you want to, if you don't agree with something, just say something. Well, I'm saying something. I think there may be something wrong here, but it's up to you. And here's an example. To wear an improper expression on your face was punishable offense in Newspeak. This is from 1984, George Orwell, 1984. So, and even corporations here, businesses will not be able to hide. Businesses will not be able to hide. So it's not just you personally they're going to track. They're going to track the corporations. I can assure you, corporations are not lenient on anything. And they'll even track you if you go to a sporting event. And if you, for some reason, end up in prison, they're going to take your voice print with or without your permission, and they're going to record it, and they're going to own it. And so they're going to use these technologies that are going to help supposedly prevent crime. You're not going to want to say anything to anybody ever again. This is going to take years for this to develop. I'm telling you this up front so that you understand what it is. And you can go look it up and come up to your own conclusions. You may say this is 100% all wrong, or there may be something to this. When you sit down the toilet, you're going to say, wow, it's checking my heart rate, my pulse. I just had an argument. I have to calm myself down, or else the social credit will change my score, saying I lose my temper too often. This is the kind of stuff that's coming. In the Arabic world, there's applications that are tracking women, and so women have no freedoms already. Now it's going to be digital no freedoms. Very, very important to keep in mind that this is what's coming around the world. Thailand is not going to is not going to hold back. They're going to also censor as well. There's going to be cars that are going to be listening to what you say. They're going to be recording the tone of your voice, everything. And if you think that's the end of it, they're going to have AI anchors on the news telling you what's true and what isn't. So it's not just going to be Anderson Cooper, who's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and he can, have fun in Brazil, in his home in Brazil. It's going to be AI, and there's not going to be a human connection anymore. We're going to be disconnected, and we're going to be harvested, and we're going to be eliminated very, very soon. So this is, just the examples go on and on and on. It just doesn't seem to end. And this is very important to keep in mind. The internet court is coming. And there's not a lot of discussion about this. The internet court. When you build a social credit system, you need to have a court system. Right now, the court systems are all backed up. Everything's all gummed up. They want it that way on purpose. The refugee crisis is to completely make it impossible for the court systems to process people, to weigh down the infrastructure of the United States, which is the only corporation that can change this. It is the only corporation that can have any hope of changing the outcome of this. And so we have to bombard it with tens of millions of people coming in who are not able to integrate immediately, who don't have the language, the education, the skills to do it. They're not saying they're bad people. And the United Nations funds them. They give them credit cards up to $2,000 or $3,000 to make the trip from Central America to the U.S. And so it's designed to shatter America and open the door. Oh, problem, reaction, solution. We will open the door to. We have to be able to manage crimes that are happening in the digital world. So they're going to create a internet court of some kind. I don't know the exact title or when it's coming out or how it's going to be positioned to the world. But when it comes out, everybody needs to be paying attention to this stuff, because once it comes out, that's it. Because AI algorithms are being used right now to sentence people in Canada and in the United States. And once it goes mainstream and online for all states and all provinces and everything, it'll just give you an auto fine. It'll fine you. You put your foot on the sidewalk and the light was red and you weren't paying attention. You were looking at your phone and you were just about to jaywalk. Well, it could just interpret your 1 foot off the sidewalk into the street could be enough for an infraction. And so when this comes out, they need a court system for that. That's why they're gumming up the network so that they can open the door for the reaction saying, I can't get anything done. You got to do something, Prime Minister such and such, or President such and such, or if you're a corporate corporation, country. They're going to put together a new model of an internet court, which everything will be done through AI, and there'll be no way to determine how it came to the decision. Why? Because that's how communism works. Can you debate anything? Can you ask questions? No, you cannot. The censorship is only the beginning. And I am myself, I'm blacklisted for life. I'm blacklisted for life. Why? Because I believe that the human individual, Chinese, Arabic, no matter where you are, should have the right to have an individual life. The power of the individual is very, very strong. And if you're educated and programmed and cared for correctly, and you grow up with civil, being of a civil mind and a socially integrated mind, and you care about yourself and you care about your fellow man, woman, and child, then there could be an incredible outcome. But this is not what the outcome is. And so by speaking out, it means I will have a miserable end to my life. And so I may never be able to travel again. I may never be able to do all the things that I want. But that ultimately, at the end of the day, since the people at the top don't care, example, Mark Zuckerberg, all he has to do is show up and apologize every 2-3 months. Oh, I'm working real hard to make things right. He doesn't, when you're at that level, you don't care. And they handpick people who have psychopathic tendencies, people who have very low empathy, very low caring about your fellow man. They just don't care. That's why they harvest these people. They put them up at the top and they do this. Very, very important to keep in mind. And so this is what's happening here. And so we're going to wrap up for today. I hope this information served you well. I hope this is food for thought. I want to thank you for listening in today. It's a little bit long-winded, but I appreciate your attention. JordanMaxwellShow.com and my website, JeffreyMatt.com. Again, one final note. This could turn out to be a very powerful, strong transition, and we may not have this outcome, and that's so I don't have a dark future for myself and for everybody else. It may be a very strong outcome, so I want to thank everybody tonight, and I wish you good luck with it. Well.
Launch.